You are listening to the Teacher Tech Podcast, Episode 2. Tonight we're talking about Plickers, a classroom response system. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Teacher Tech Podcast. My name is Daniel Kelly. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode on Plickers. The Teacher Tech Podcast and show notes can be found at danielkelly.co/teachertech. Check out the website. Feel free to add Teacher Tech Podcast to your favorite RSS feed or on iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Daniel Kelly EDU. So tonight we're talking about Plickers. That's Plickers with a P, Plickers. You can find those at plickers.com if you aren't driving, and you can pull up that website right now and take a look kind of while we're talking about this type of technology and this specific program you can use in your classroom. So the Plickers are something I saw at a conference, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. And what I really like about them is that they're intuitive for both the teacher and the student. The setup is remarkably easy, and they're free, which to me, as a teacher, really makes a difference. You don't have to go to your administration asking for money. You certainly don't have to pull it out of your own pocket. And you can have this up and running probably within 10 minutes of you introducing it to the students. So I Googled classroom response technology real quick just to see what came up when I looked at it, and just for price. So I Googled classroom response technology, and you're welcome to do that and kind of follow along with what I did. And I clicked on shopping, and I saw that they have quite a few different products, and obviously these aren't at state rates, but they give you an idea how much some of these technologies go for. Anywhere between, I'm looking at one for $1,300, one for $2,600. I've used a few of these, another at $1,500. I've used the Promethean. I've used the CTE clickers. And what it requires for you to use any or all of these is you need a host system. So you need a computer generally, and you can tie you can tie these into the computer with a USB key, and all the students and the teachers' remotes all go through the computer and then show up on whatever projection technology you have, whether it's a TV or a projector. And what these technologies do, for those that aren't familiar with classroom response technologies, is they allow the teacher to ask a question of the students, generally multiple choice or true false. Some of them have a bit more functionality when it comes to inputting text and things like that, but they work best multiple choice, true false, anything that has just multiple selections. And so the teacher would ask the students a question, and the students would answer A, B, C, or D, or true, false. And it's not necessarily intuitive as to why you would use this. Why is this different from, raising your hand and asking a question or writing it down on a piece of paper? And the answer to that is it provides real-time formative feedback that you're not always going to get through other methods or other means. And I think that's the biggest thing that you get out of something like this is you can see where the students' misconceptions are immediately. You don't have to wait. You don't have to grade a test. But not just the teacher can see that, the students can see it. They can see where they fit with respect to the rest of the class. So if they got it right and 80% of the class got it right, they have that immediate, hey, great, I did a good job. But the students that were wrong don't have necessarily that embarrassment of raising their hand, answering a question incorrectly. They can still attempt to answer it and see that they got it wrong, but the rest of the class doesn't know that they did. It's not like it's going to say, hey, Susie got it wrong. Everybody point and laugh at Susie. It's not going to have that kind of effect and that kind of feeling for Susie in this case, raising her hand and getting it wrong. And it doesn't matter how well you structure a class or how much you stress that it's better to give a wrong answer than to sit and say nothing. It's still in the minds of those students. Certainly me, now, even if I'm somewhere and somebody asks a question or wants feedback, I'm a little reluctant to raise my hand in case I'm wrong. And even in a situation where I'm 100% sure I know the answer, it's just one of those things that I struggle with as a learner. So what this kind of response tool does is it allows the teacher to get that immediate feedback and correct those misconceptions. So if you had true or false, the world is flat, and you had 3 students say it's flat, you know immediately that you can correct that. And you can say, well, it's actually not flat. And you can, if need be, if that's what you're studying, you can get into the geometry of why it looks flat. But in a simple example like that, you can just give them that instantaneous feedback and correct those misconceptions. It really works well when you have half the class or greater than half the class get an answer wrong. And you can really see where those differences are in student learning versus student expectations. What do you expect them to answer? And they answer everything's incorrect. If that happens on a test, that's much more difficult to address than it is if it happens in real time. And for those that have been teaching any length of time, I hope understand that and have been through that that process of grading a test and seeing, well, they really didn't understand this, and why didn't they get this? Well, now you can probe, you can ask, well, who answered A, and why do you think that? And hopefully get a better feeling for what the students are learning and what they're taking in from you. And it may be just a simple adjustment in instruction that'll help you for that, not only for that class, but for classes going forward and students going forward. But anyways, so I'm looking at these technologies, these student response systems, and $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 is a lot to go to an administrator and say, well, I want to shell this out, especially if they're technologically averse, which I have seen, or there's just not the funding at that time to go ahead and do something like this. And if you don't like it, it's not, that's a big investment for it to sit in a box. And that's really where I got used to these systems. I was teaching technology in a school, and I had 20 students, and we were given 4 sets of these for all the teachers on my hallway. And I tried it. I used it for a little bit. I didn't really like it. We ended up letting another teacher, a math teacher, use these, and he used them every day, and he really got into it. And the students really liked kind of that back and forth. And some of it was, hey, it's a toy, it's a technology. But they have their own issues. They have batteries that need to be charged. They have, their electronics. They can drop, they can break, they can stop working. And any of those things kind of take time away from what a teacher would be doing in a classroom. And what you're doing in the classroom, as hopefully the teachers listening to this podcast. A few similar programs or technologies that I've used, and I'm sure some of you have seen things like Poll Everywhere. If you go to any conferences, there's always one guy, it's probably me, that has a Poll Everywhere poll up going before the session starts, so everybody can kind of see, who's there, whether they're administrators, whether they're teachers, what your experience levels are. It helps me as a presenter to know who my audience is, and it also helps kind of the people in the room to break the ice with technology when we're talking about how to integrate it into a classroom. It's a really nice technology. It's free at the beginning. Once you get into higher levels of Poll Everywhere, it's a little bit more expensive. You get a few more options. In my opinion, the free version works just fine, and use it. But you don't have the same tracking ability. The same for people. I've seen people use Twitter hashtags and use that in the classroom. But the problem with both of these technologies is it requires the participant to have some device, whether it be a phone or a tablet or a computer, that's able to interface and send out these messages to you. So if they have pull everywhere, they can text it to a number. They don't need an account. But if they have something like a Twitter kind of system, you need a Twitter account. And not everybody is going to have a Twitter account, especially when you're talking about middle and high school students. And do you really want them on Twitter while you're in class? I've seen it used, but you have to be really comfortable with having them on social media, and you have to have school policies that will allow that. But again, doesn't allow you to track student progress. So this is where Plickers come in and really fit kind of the best of both worlds and give you that response system that the students can use, a tactile system that they can hold, and gives the teacher the ability to track. Plickers uses cards rather than a remote clicker or a smartphone. And essentially, and I'm going to oversimplify this, but essentially it's a QR code that's printed on a piece of either cardstock or just regular printer paper. And you print out this code, and each one is numbered. And within the Plickers website, you can set up classes, and in that you can set up students. Each of these students is given a specific number, so 1 through 40 or 1 through 63, depending on how big your class is. But assuming that most of the people listening are K-12 educators, or if they're teaching at a university or college, they don't have more than 40 in the classroom. That makes it, for a lot of reasons, a difficult thing to use any kind of technology. But you set up the classes, and each student gets that assigned number. You hand out those cards, and each one of those cards are unique, and they have that student number. And you can have the students write their name on it. They can take it with them. It only works in that classroom, and you can set up multiple classes using those same cards. So you can also laminate them if need be. There's on Amazon, I think it's $20. You can buy a class set of 40. But the easiest way to do it, the cheapest way to do it, is just print them off. They give you PDFs of each of the different codes in order, all taken care of. You can print them off 2 to a sheet and just cut the sheets in half, give each student 1 through 20, and you have their name associated with that. So if you take a look at the card, if you're able to look on the website, they have an example. But the card is uniquely shaped, and that goes for all 40 or all 63 of them. And on the outside edges of the main figure on the card, you have A, B, C, and D. And on the corners, you have a number, and that's the number that's associated with whichever student within the Plickers program. And you don't have to set these up for each student if you don't want to. So you can literally take this, and I do when I'm presenting. I take these cards, I hand them out, and it just gives a rough idea of how many people answer correctly, how many didn't answer correctly, and gives me what they chose in percentages. And that can help me give some either formative feedback or just as a demonstration. But if you do assign the students the numbers, and I do recommend that just because you can really see a student's progress and track them through time. And it gives the student a feel like this is mine, and they can decorate the back of it and do whatever they want, as long as the front of it remains the same and intact, kind of that black shape on a white background. But what the student would do is if you asked them a multiple choice question, A through D, they would hold that card up oriented with the letter that they selected up. So if they selected A, they would hold A, so A was vertical and C was on the bottom. And that would track for all 4 answers. And what the teacher would do then is take the app on either their iPhone or their Android phone or whatever they're using, and they would scan the classroom. And what's unique about this app is when they scan it, it not only it pops up that the student answered, so you can see how many students answered, you can see which students didn't, and it'll pop their name up with it. So you can say, oh, Jimmy, you didn't answer it, hold up your card. Or if one card is obscured by another one, you can say, John, hold up your card a little higher than the person in front of you so I can scan it. and they can do that in real time. The backside is blank, and you can print these so that they're two-sided. But the recommendation from Plickers, and I would agree with this, is that you leave the back blank. It allows the students to semi-anonymously answer the question. Only they know the orientation that is A or B or C or D. And the students behind them can only see that white card. They don't see the shape. So they don't have an idea of what somebody's answering. So not only do you get the anonymity of the student who's answering, but you also, the other students are giving a real response, not something based on what somebody else is holding. So I've seen, and I'm pretty sure teachers did this when I was in school, you hold up a number, 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on the answer, so the teacher could get that formative feedback. This allows that, but gives you a much more authentic picture of what the students think the answer is. So what you can use these for is for that formative instant feedback. But if you associated the student name with their individual card, you can track that and run that for an entire quiz. And you can set up questions within the library on the Plickers website, and you can set all those questions up so that the students, you can just go through it one by one, and the students can answer them, and you can get formative feedback in a quiz style, so the students could see what their final score would be. I'd be interested, and I don't know how that would work if you actually try to quiz that way. I wouldn't personally do it, but I'm sure that it has been done, and the reason I wouldn't do it is, some students are going to take longer to read through a question than others, and it's a different format than they're used to if they're reading it on the board. But this program really allows you to add quite a bit to it, and you can ask questions, you can add pictures, you can really make this an interactive learning experience for the students, and that's something that those other classroom response tools allow you to do, but they're so cost prohibitive and they take a lot more to set up, and there's a lot more moving parts. If a student loses a clicker, it's $30, $40, $50 to replace that one individual clicker. If they lose their card, or they spill Kool-Aid or juice on their card at lunch, you can just print them out a new one. You can print out a new number 3 card for John, and John has a new card. And that can happen for any student in there. And you have those, again, PDF files from Plickers. But the fact that it's free, the fact that it's something that you can bring into a classroom quickly. The students just have to hold up a card oriented in a certain way, and you can do that. You can practice. Everybody answer A, and you can do that depending on the level of students. And you know your students better than anybody, so you know what they can handle and what they can't. But this isn't that far off what they're used to doing with raising their hand. So I really recommend Plickers. I think it's a great tool to use in the classroom. I think that things like this can enhance learning, can actually enhance knowledge acquisition, and do so in a way that's easy for the teacher to set up. One thing I didn't mention about setting up the classroom, you can copy and paste your class list into it, and it's done. You don't need to individually go through and name each student and assign them a number. It's all done for you. It's really intuitive. You can set it up in literally a couple of minutes, and you can track the students' progress and see how they have done over time. So I recommend Plickers. I think it's a great program. Check out their website. There's videos on YouTube. It really is as easy to use in a classroom as those videos, unlike some of the other ones. But look at what is best for your students. If using Poll Everywhere is good for your students and you're using it, don't change. But take a look at these programs and see how you can like them, or how you can use them, in your classroom to give your students a better experience, and gives you a better picture of what they actually know and how they're responding to questions. So you can find more information, plickers.com. That link will be in the show notes on my website, danielkelly.co/teachertech. Again, friend me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter at DanielKellyEDU. That's it for episode 2 of the Teacher Tech Podcast. I hope to see you next time. We are talking about smartboards. Be warned, I get a little bit animated about these things. They're not my favorite tool in the classroom. I'll show you some alternatives that are cheaper and easier to use next time on Teacher Tech Podcast. See ya.